Now, this is an article that was shared by masslive.com, stating that by February it raised more than $90,000 and the initial goal was $10,000. So it's supposed to go to the kids. Why would you have a goal of $10,000? Like, what would that even accomplish? So, I mean, and who got the life insurance money? The average life insurance for police is $100,000. So anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 is, average. Yeah. So what happened to the life insurance policy, and why did he need $10,000? But in February 2022, he had raised more than $90,000 with a goal of $10,000. So let's see what it ended up with. $336,000 and $735 was raised for the kids, which all of this is supposed to go directly to the kids, right? I'm just like, I think it should have been open-ended fundraiser if they really need money, but I'm just like, why are they needing money? Because these kids, I'm sure he had an insurance policy. And I wouldn't imagine why they wouldn't be the beneficiaries, or a trust for them or something. So who got the money of his life insurance? Why was he needing money? Was the money not being given to them? Not being preserved for them? Why did he need money? $10,000 specifically. And $90,000 wasn't enough. Then let's talk about what he did on January 29th. 2022. It says the funds raised will go directly to Kaylee and Patrick for their futures. It doesn't, but it doesn't say anything about the insurance policy. What happened to the insurance policy? Who was the beneficiary of his insurance policy? Why is nobody discussing that? Why are they saying he needed $10,000? And even when he raised $90,000, that apparently wasn't enough. I wish a lot of money for them, but I'm just saying, why would you have a goal of $10,000 specifically? And why are you saying you're in need? Like there's no money that was left for them in a police insurance policy. I just doubt that. And he is the one. He is the person who targeted Karen Read before any of the cops openly had done so. There was footprints at her tail light after she left to go to the hospital between 5:30 and 7. Somebody left footprints at her tail light, which her tail light was intact, and then 8:23 a.m. seen on the cop's dash cam, her tail light was missing. But he said in an interview, and he also said to Communications with Turtle Boy, that he was glad that the FBI was getting involved. Like he was open to their investigating. And then, he just changes his story a lot. So he was also the one who was on probation. Actually, I don't think he had got probation yet when her crime happened. Or she was charged or whatever. At the time of his brother's death, he was awaiting trial. I don't believe he had got a plea bargain yet for DUI. And he had harmed an old man in a wreck that he caused from a DUI. And he never openly took, even after he was on probation for it, he never took any accountability whatsoever for committing a crime. He said that it was a very unfortunate accident. It wasn't an unfortunate accident. It was a wreck caused by a crime, driving under the influence. And he didn't, say, I'm very sorry for what I caused that old man. I caused his injuries, and I'm clean now. I don't do that thing anymore. It was just, that was a very unfortunate accident. Just very scary about his accountability. Anyways, but he is the one who threatened her in the courtrooms, or he said menacing things to her. He's the one who lied on her in the first interview, accusing her of wanting to be sitting close to them. And then, in another interview, he says that he made sure that he got that seat. That's why he sat where he did every day, so he can have the ability to glare over at her. And you saw him a couple times. He would reach his head over and try to look at her. And, a lot of times you saw Yannetti leaning forward to block his view of her if he was being particularly menacing. And he took into her. He said in an interview that his mother asked if she had anything to do with it. Like, why would you even think that? This woman has an impeccable record. She's highly educated. She's successful. Never, ever had any kind of anything domestic. Why would you just say that about her? And he's like, oh, no, we're not going to go there. But then, like literally moments later, when he goes outside and sees that she left, because she left and went to her dad's, that made her guilty. I mean, to me, that's just overzealously targeting her and continues to manipulate and try to be the persuader. It seems like he's the spokesperson for the family, as it has appeared. He's the one getting all this money for the kids when they have life insurance policies. I'm sure he's claiming that they need money, which is bizarre, because he asked for $10,000, and then even after he got $90,000, which was well past the $10,000 of his original goal, it goes on until he gets, $300 some thousand dollars, and he's like, okay, I'll shut it down. But what happened to the money? What happened to the money? Why is he speaking, angrily about the FBI after he originally said he was happy the FBI, he was open to, their investigation, and then he was just livid about the FBI because it didn't turn out what he wanted? It's like, why does he need Karen Read to be guilty? And why does he, talk about everybody in the whole wide world who looks at this ridiculous prosecution as if it's stupid? Like, why? Why does he act like they're a bunch of conspiracy theorists? We're talking, you have very seasoned attorneys across the board have discussed this case, and they're all pointing problems at this state. Okay, and there are people who have, they know how to research the case. They have access to ability to look at documents online. They have they've watched the trial. It's just legal analysts. But according to him, everybody's a bunch of conspiracy theorists, and they're all just followers of some YouTube blogger, which many people have said they've never even heard of that person. They've watched Dateline interviews and Nightline interviews, and they've watched other medical articles from the very beginning, before that blogger even got involved. There was Stephen Scanlon. So you ask in the interview, he doesn't say anything about Stephen Scanlon, who is the person who started the third-party corporate defense. He's the one that made the accusation, but he won't say anything about Stephen Scanlon. He just targets Karen Read, which to me, I find that to be specifically malicious, because he avoids talking about Stephen Scanlon being the one who made the accusations first. He doesn't talk about Lucky, who is the one who risked his just standing in the community to stand up against all these cops and basically say, no, there was no body there at 2:45. I know because I was there. And of course the FBI verified his GPS that he was in fact there at that time. He doesn't talk about him. He doesn't talk about Stephen Serif on day one, who said that there was only a light dusting on top of John when they found him, which contradicts Kerry Roberts, who he seems to particularly worship or idolize in the way he talks about her. Oh, she's so nice. Such a good person. She talked about John like he was garbage behind his back while he was alive and in his death. That he was just some creepy dude, basically, that she was nothing but benefits and sex. Babysitter, benefits, and sex. That's all she was. Without calling him a creep, she pretty much talked about him like he was just some dude that did that. And then you have her saying that there's 4 inches on top of him, which contradicts Officer Serif and contradicts Lucky. He doesn't mention them. He just points the finger and talks about the Karen Read show and talks about anybody who speaks up against what the state is doing, to include the FBI expert witnesses. It's all that he's just livid about them. And I'm just like, why? And I know that families grieve and whatnot, but when most families who have lost a loved one, they listen to the state. So you have, many people who have been, 100 people were removed off of death row back when they first came out with DNA because they were exonerated. And I'm sure that those people, those 100 families of victims who lost their loved ones, they all believed that the state knew what they were doing. But he's a little different than just your standard families, believe in the state when they lose a loved one. You have FBI who has gotten involved and investigated the investigators and have found that what they're saying is not even possible. Then you have the 71 count charges against 6 state troopers who were conspiring, extortion, bribery, false reporting, conspiracy, and all kinds of charges. I've shared that case. Filed in January. So you have crooked cops and crooked troopers because cops are involved in that scandal. Unnamed, names redacted. So then you have the contradictions of Trooper Guarino, who said it's not possible that Jen McCabe could have seen her at 12:45, and that car collision that he said happened, that Trooper Paul said happened at 12:45. It's not possible because she wasn't there at 12:45 because she auto-connected at John O'Keefe's Wi-Fi 12:36. So you have all this revelations that came out during the trial, yet he's still holding an even more malicious position with her. And I'm just like, what? Why? He specifically has targeted Karen Read. Him specifically. And he is the one with the money. He's the one that said he needed money for the kids. Even though I'm sure that John O'Keefe had a life insurance policy. I mean, what cop doesn't? I don't know. Maybe there's some of them out there that just, they don't bother. But I'm sure that he was a responsible person who these kids, he knew he was in a high-risk job. He was a Boston police cop. I'm sure that he would have had a life insurance policy. I don't gamble, but if I did, I would put money on it. Just saying. I'm sure he had a life insurance policy. And probably one more than the average that you get, just for whatever you get for police department or police union. I'm sure he had a good life insurance policy in case something happened. So who got that money? Why does he need money? Why is this extra $300,000 being raised? I mean, I don't know. And then they got the house. The parents got the house, apparently. They're living there, I guess, with the children. Just why didn't they step up, when it first happened? And I don't know. Why is he, I guess he said, well, they don't want him to have to move and, and all this other stuff. And, so I'm sure maybe there's a legitimate reason. It's just his specifically targeting her before any accusations was even made is suspicious. Because she drove to her father's in a blizzard. Okay, when you got Section 12 from a hospital, from psychiatric, saying you want to die, yeah, you generally don't get released the same day unless you're going to be with somebody. She could not be alone. I'm pretty sure that's what that was. And I know for a fact that her dad did not want her to be alone. So her driving to her dad's would have been abnormal if she didn't. And I'm sure when she got out of the hospital, she knew what her taillight looked like. She saw that it was been cracked because she told him it was cracked. And according to Carrie, who he worships, it was a tiny hole. But we saw the pictures later that it was completely missing. So she knew when she arrived there at John O'Keefe's house, she saw that taillight. She's like, oh my goodness. I'm sure. I don't know, but I feel pretty confident to say that she didn't want anything to do with any of them because they were so tied and wrapped up in all of them people. She figured out pretty quickly when she left that hospital that somebody had killed John and that they tricked her. They were lying to her, pretending that he never made it in that house. And, she came down off of her hysterics and off of her shock, and the wheels in her mind started rolling. She's like, oh my gosh, something bad happened, and they're involved. This guy right here was all up in him. So I think it was very rational and logical for her to pull away. And I don't believe anything any of them said, quoting her. I don't believe any of them. But why specifically is this guy specifically targeted her? He's not been moved by all this evidence that was presented the doctor who, he knows those marks on that arm wasn't caused by that car. He made a comment earlier on that he had these marks on his arm. And, he, a long time ago said he was hoping to get the answers, and then he acted like he was open to see what the FBI said. But then, when the FBI came out with what they did, all he had from this guy was anger. Anger. He was angry at the FBI because they didn't go along. And then you have all these contradictions in the trial. And he did not bat an eye. When they originally booked her on second-degree murder, it was for vehicular manslaughter, or not, vehicular homicide. Second-degree manslaughter was about vehicular homicide. But in the very end, the second degree to the jury was she beat him to death. Now, he knows better than that. And he did not bat an eye. They don't care how they get her. Why was it so important for him to get her out of the way, out of the picture? She saw something very, very suspicious was going on, and she pulled away from all of them, and she did so very politely. She should have been like in their face about what happened, but she didn't really know who to blame in that moment. And it wasn't until she was indicted that Stephen Scanlon came forward and told them who to look into, and told them who did it, right? Yeah, this guy here, how can he not know? How can he not know, after Stephen Scanlon and Lucky and Seraph saying it was only light dusting on top of him, consistent with what Lucky said? How can he not know when all these expert witnesses says that there's no possible way, it's not consistent, that car caused those injuries? Why is he still so malicious? He has, in my opinion, a very specific agenda. I look at him not so much as a victim. He did lose his brother, but I look at him suspiciously now. There's something going on with this man. When I see that he is so malicious towards Karen, like he wanted everybody to be against her, and he's leading that pack, and then he's the one getting hundreds of thousands of dollars when he's already got a life insurance policy, and his original goal was $10,000. I don't know, maybe he was just shy about asking for money, right? It's okay to ask for an open-ended fundraising for kids who've lost not only both their parents, but the guy who was raising them as well. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? But there's already life insurance policies in place. And who has that money? And why? I know that, with the house, they probably have to use some of that money for the house. Maybe it wasn't even enough to cover the house. But the house was from, I believe, the sister. I don't know. I think that this guy has an agenda, and I think there's something going on here. And I think the feds should look into him as well, because he is so hostile towards the feds. I think people should be so thankful that a neutral party came in who was available to both sides. They were available to the O'Keefe side. They were available to the prosecution. They weren't there for her. They were there to find out if it's consistent that car caused those injuries. And they should be thankful for that, because that was a lot of money to hire those experts to do all those tests, and that wasn't, you know what I mean? The state wasn't doing it. He got the best experts. This guy got the best experts in the world for justice to find out what happened to him. And they have, not only does this guy not have any gratitude, like he originally pretended like he had, he has anger towards them, because it wasn't how he wanted it to turn out. I'm just like, yeah. So who got the money for the life insurance policy? Just saying. Something is very wrong with this guy right here. There's something wrong. I understand families. I mean, he's angry. People have a right to be angry at the person that they believe killed their loved one. Absolutely. But I'm sorry. You're not looking at what Lucky and Seraph and Trooper Guarino said. You're not looking at the other cop. The cop who said he saw Higgins at the Sally Port at her car for a long period of time with the supervisor when that 42 minutes of footage was missing. They should be outraged at these police. They should be outraged If he really wants some money, he should be suing them for botched investigations, for lying to them, telling them that that car caused that accident when the best experts in the world said that's not even possible. Put an associate's degree expert witness on there that was just ridiculous. And then you have medical examiners who couldn't conclude it. You have a doctor who was a fantastic experience saying that those were dog attack marks. He should be suing them. They wanted money. But for whatever reason, he targeted Karen from the beginning. Like he just didn't even wanted to make sure she was way out of the picture. Why?